Welcome back to Track Talk. We're going to be doing another game of 1846 tonight. I just figured that 1846 is a very popular game, and we have a ton of games of 1830 already on record, so why don't we branch out a little bit. Again, we have a little bit of a trouble with the draft in terms of these recordings for 1846. It's very difficult to, create a narrative or make meaningful analysis with the information as it's displayed on the website, but we will do our best and see if there's any improvements we can make. Mad Fedor is going to start us off, and he has the option of the Michigan Southern, the mail contract, Michigan Central, Boomtown, Chicago Western, and a pass. So some very strong privates in his rotation right now, with the Michigan Southern and the Chicago Western being two of my favorite privates in particular. Irwin has Little Miami. I believe this is an expansion private. I could be wrong about that. Big Four, the other private company. Meatpacking, very good, and then he has a bunch of passes. So a little bit less options than Mad Fedor had for his first round. Batsman also has the Chicago and Western, so we know that Mad Fedor didn't pick that. I believe that Michigan Central also was an option for him, so he may have taken the Michigan Southern instead of the other privates, and we'll find that out in a moment. Cube Beast has meatpacking and all the passes, so it looks like players are eager to take privates in this match, unlike our last match where I think they tended to take a lot of passes early. Mad Fedor, he has the Michigan Southern, so kind of as we expected, and now has the option of the Chicago and Western or the Big Four. He may want to pass as well. It's a little bit hard to pass up the Chicago Western, I think. It doesn't have, amazing synergy with the Michigan Southern because that gives you a pretty easy way of getting into Chicago all of itself, but it's still a nice private. Who has priority here? Cute Beast has priority, so Mad Fedor is going last. So it may make sense to pick up the Chicago and Western here because he has no control really over which company he's going to get, and this is kind of an escape valve for, rehabilitating a company that may otherwise be blocked out of Chicago. Irwin, he picked up Little Miami, and this is just a track laying private. Now has the option of mail contract in Chicago and Western, so clearly Mad Fedor did not pick that, and he also did not pick the Big Four. I don't recall which company he had otherwise, so he may have picked a pass there. Does Irwin want the Chicago and Western? He will be going second to last in priority. It's still a reasonable choice. Batsman, mostly passes left or the Big Four. Seems like nobody's eager for that private. Cute Beast has all passes in the mail contract, so I think all the privates have been taken except for mail, and we may see that pass several times to reduce its price. Mad Fedor did end up with the two Michigan privates, so elected to pass on the Chicago and Western, and now will be taking a pass most likely. Irwin, also taking a pass. He did end up with the Chicago and Western, so he was a little bit worried about his ability to par a company that he wants, perhaps. Another pass goes. Batsman has ended up with Boomtown and Big Four, so he has the other minor company. And looks like Cute Beast will be left with the opportunity for first pass on the mail contract. That's kind of unfortunate for him because I imagine he doesn't want to buy it for 80, but by passing here, he's going to make it a lot cheaper for the other players, and by the time he gets back down to Batsman, it may be a much more appealing company. So I imagine he'll pass here. He does. Mad Fedor also passing. Irwin actually looks like he takes it at 60. So I think that, being the first one with the opportunity for the mail contract is a little bit of a undesirable position just because you're most likely going to be giving a cheap private to another player. Cute Beast has priority, has a bunch of cash, and the first choice of parring a company, and let's see what he picks. He picks the IC. He does have meatpacking, so maybe looking to get into Chicago early and just really take advantage of that private. The IC is a great company, has the benefit of the extra share worth of treasury value. He has parred it low, so he may be hoping to pull some shenanigans here where he closes the company after buying in his private. I have seen that work for other players, but it's clearly a little bit of a high-risk strategy. He could also be looking to par a second company and just get all the money from the IC, just issue a ton of shares, get all the money from the IC into his second company, and that may be what he's looking to do. The downside of this is that he has, you know, now fourth choice on parring that second company, so he may not get the company he wants. Batsman, he will be taking the B&O, and he pars that at 80, pretty high par. Irwin, he has 240 bucks, so what is he going to be taking? He will be taking the NYC. The East Coast, the Northeast Coast, I should say, is a crowded area of the map, so when someone pars Erie, you have to be a little bit careful with your operations, make sure that you're not getting blocked out if you start the Erie in particular. And Mad Fedor here, looks like the Erie is not an option actually. Oh no, here it is. He will be taking the GT. So I was kind of expecting that. I guess I didn't say it out loud, so it's easy for me to say. But I think it's probably the safer start. It's a good company, and it doesn't compete with the NYC, at least in the first couple of operating rounds. He also has the Michigan minor company, which synergizes very nicely with the GT. Cute Beast, does he take a second company now? And if he does, which company is he looking for? I would imagine he'd be taking the C&O rather than the Erie. He does have meatpacking, which could also work with St. Louis. Where is St. Louis on the map? I see, it's way over here. So not amazing either way. But we'll see if he is going to continue to buy IC or if he is taking a second company here. And he will just continue to float the IC. Batsman buying his own company. Irwin probably still looking to buy his own company. And Matt Fedor is doing the same. Does Cute Beast now does he par a second company? He's just going to continue to invest in the IC. So a very low par from Cute Beast. He's going to be able to buy a bunch of shares, but the ability for this company to raise capital for permanent trains is going to be very reduced. And it looks like he's just happy to continue buying shares. So he sells down, brings it closer to the closure, and now maybe looking to par his second company. I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the details of what he's doing in terms of this strategy, so this may have been expected for a more skilled player or more knowledgeable, experienced player, but it looks like he probably will be parring a second company as we suspected. And he takes the Erie actually, so not the C&O. That's also a pretty low par, much better than the IC, but still kind of low. So I imagine we'll be seeing this player shuffle all of his cash out of the IC and into the Erie as soon as possible. The rest of the players are continuing to pass, and then he will probably buy another 2 shares of the Erie. He actually buys 1 share of the NYC. Okay, so all the players out of cash. Batsman will be having priority into the next stock round, and we will jump right into the operations. Minor companies operate first. Michigan Southern going to be looking to cooperate with the Grand Trunk, which is pretty standard play, and heading towards Chicago. Big Four owned by Batsman, who also owns the B&O. So the B&O may be looking to teleport down to Cincinnati, which would, be pretty easy for the Big Four to help and lay track for. Looks like he's going to be working towards Chicago, maybe just hoping to get a head start and prevent the IC from getting there, although I don't imagine that that's really what Cute Beast is aiming for here. He may well just be closing that company. Once it closes, he may be able to repar it, but we'll see how that plays out. IC, he is heading into Centralia. And does he issue a bunch of shares? Buying a lot of trains. He does have a route now, so unless he withholds into the closure spots, it's going to be a little bit difficult for him to get there. I guess he could also just leave a share in the market and fall back in the stock round, actually. Erie, he will be racing towards Cleveland, hoping to prevent NYC from having a quick run into and out of Cleveland with just the 2 trains. And he is buying trains out of the IC, so getting a cheap train. and it does look like the IC will be closing. So I imagine he falls back, well, he buys in his private, then falls back and closes the company. He's not going to have priority in the next stock round to immediately repar it, which would be very slick if that was the case, but wasn't able to manage that exactly. So we'll be running 3 trains with the Erie, which is quite nice. GT probably heading towards Chicago still. Buys in, he issues shares, I see. And then maybe is looking to get 2 runs, one into Chicago, one into Holland, from Port Huron or one of the eastern offboards. So 1-2 train left, and he will leave that for the B&O to purchase. B&O's first operation, he buys in his private for the quick token, and he issues shares and heads down to Cincinnati. So will he buy into the second rank of trains? He does, and green trains are now available for Irwin, who may be happy about that as it allows him to upgrade and get into Cleveland that way. He's going to buy his private and have the ability to teleport over to Chicago, deferring that for right now. Oh, he does take the token. And he's actually going to start building from the west and just let the Erie control Cleveland uncontested for now. He's also issuing a number of shares and probably looking to buy 2 trains here. He just buys the 1 for now. If he had bought the cheaper train, he would have, well, he has money for a cheaper train already, so content with just 1 train from now. Maybe looking to get into Detroit. He will be operating first because the operating order is reversed in the second set or second operation of this set. So he will beat the Grand Trunk into Detroit, which is pretty nice for him. Of course, the Grand Trunk controls the Michigan Southern token, so it's not really going to hurt the Grand Trunk, but it's very nice for the New York player to secure that so early. Minor companies operating again. Do we see him cooperate with the New York, or does he try and block him out? Looks like he's happy to help, and then maybe upgrading the gentle curve to get into Chicago with the Grand Trunk, which it looks like he does. Running his 2 train, and we will see if GT buys this private in the next when he runs. B&O, he's buying in his second private. And he looks like he assigned that to H12. What is that? H12 is Cincinnati. Okay, so just increasing his run. He has 3 trains and will have 3 routes. Upgrading and getting into Louisville. So going to be running pretty well in the second operating round. Do we see the IC just head over to Cincinnati? Probably not. He has the ability to, but I think he's going to be just closing this company. I think that he is guaranteed to be closing it because it's going to be falling back. So maybe not eager to lay into Cincinnati. He is running for 260 and looks like he pays it out. Doesn't buy any more trains. NYC, maybe upgrading Detroit here and just leaving a token. Instead, upgrading Chicago and doesn't actually leave a token anywhere. Has redeemed some of his shares to get those back in the treasury. And also buying in his private. He was able to double jump, which is nice. Next operation in the GT, probably will be seeing him buying the Michigan Southern here, and may just drop a token in Chicago to secure it and guarantee his runs throughout the game. Upgrading his home, buying his private, well, buying the second private, so he will get into the second offboard here. And he actually doesn't token anywhere. Has the cash to do it, so a little bit surprised that we don't see him token, either in Chicago. I guess he doesn't need to token in Detroit, as he will be getting that token shortly. And he does buy that private now, so he'll be running more trains in the next set. Erie, 3 trains. Curious to see what he looks to do here. Um, could get into the New York home tile, but can also start heading towards Toledo through Cleveland. Um, maybe wants to upgrade Cleveland and then loop back around to the New York home tile and drop a token in Cleveland to run all of his trains. Looks like he's going to do half of one, half of another. And he'll be running multiple trains out of Salamanca, which is really not amazing because it's only a $10 city. He is able to double jump because he parred fairly low. And this will be interesting. The IC is going to be closing here, but what is he able to do before that happens? So he will be laying to link up with Cincinnati, it looks like. Did he just lay the one track? So he actually laid a gentle curve there. And we'll see, hopefully we'll see the rationale for that. I'm not sure if he's trying to block another player from starting the IC and getting into Cincinnati real easy. I mean, it really doesn't block anyone very hard. It would be pretty easy to upgrade that. Maybe just looking to avoid Cincinnati and, potentially being tokened out. Regardless, into the next stock round, QPS, as a result of the IC closing, will be last in cash. I actually didn't realize this, but I think that when a company closes, it's not available to repar. So I missed that in the rules. In 1849, for instance, you can repar the company. So the IC has just been removed from the game, it looks like. Batsman buying his own shares. Irwin also hopping on the B&O. It is running the hottest, and the other companies are really not in a good position to rust any of these 2 trains, so probably still going to be running quite well. Mad Fedor, he is also hopping on the B&O, so this company is going to not have any shares on the market, it looks like, and just be able to continue to operate. Nobody's buying the treasury shares, which is probably good in the long term for the company. QPeast doesn't have much cash, so won't be able to buy the B&O. What is he looking for? He will buy just a second Grand Trunk. And Batsman buying an Erie. Does have 4 trains, so could be running pretty well. Irwin also buying an Erie. Mad Fedor buying his own share from the market. Unfortunately, unless he gets some help from another player, specifically Irwin, looks like the GT will be falling back. QPeast is selling the New York and instead buying a B&O. And Irwin does help, so the GT's not going to be falling back. Looks like the only company to be falling back, at least right now, is the New York Central. One way to manipulate priority, or at least try and manipulate priority, is to buy the shares off the market, and then right at the end of the stock round, when everybody has done everything they want to do, put one back into the market and try and incentivize someone to take an action after you to regain priority. And we'll see if anybody's trying to pull that in this stock round. Mad Fedor buying an Erie, and it looks like probably everyone's passing. So does QPeast end up with priority? Looks like it. B&O first to operate, and I think now that the IC has closed, really should be heading towards Chicago and just securing a token there. He's not in direct competition with anybody, but Chicago's been upgraded, so it's still a pretty good revenue center. Instead going to be linking up with Cleveland in the future, it looks like. Or maybe just building towards his home tile. And he's running the same route. And he will, looks like he just pays it out. So he owns 40% of the company, 30% is in the treasury, happy to pay and not withhold anything. He'll be inching along towards the next rank of trains with these high payouts. And he does buy a 4th train here, so as a result of that is going to have to do some withholding, I think, to eventually end up with a permanent train. GT running 2 trains. Does he upgrade Detroit here? He does. and could get into Cleveland as well. He has 2 tokens left. Needs to be a little bit careful that he doesn't open up this token in Chicago. So if he does elect to link up with Cleveland, may see him also drop a token in Chicago. And he actually tokens in Toledo, so this is one upgrade away from Erie ending up with that token instead of the Grand Trunk. Not sure why he didn't prioritize the Chicago token. He's also issuing shares. Does he buy the last 4 here? Looks like he buys a 3-5. So that will give him an east-west run into Chicago, because he can run from Sarnia and hit 5 revenue centers. So he'll be running pretty well in the next operating round, but this does mean that the 2 trains are not long for this world. NYC, he is upgrading Toledo, and where is he? He doesn't have cash for a token, which is unfortunate for him. And he issues to get the cash. So he is going to block the Erie out. That is kind of unfortunate for Erie. Not going to have an easy way into Chicago and the west of the map as a result of being blocked out of this pre-laid track. He has a single train, is unable to run the east-west because he doesn't have 5 stops. And still making 200, which is not terrible with just 1 train. He pays that out. And Erie now with 4 trains, but worse track than it could have had. Maybe looking to upgrade Cleveland and just head down into Cincinnati. He needs to make sure he's not totally tokened out of the west. And that's what he's doing. He does drop a token in Cleveland, probably daring these other players to cut the New York's run in half. And as a result of that token, is able to run for a lot more than he did last operating round. B&O, second operation, still able to run these 2 trains, so happy about that. Where is he looking to go? Still hasn't gone into Chicago, maybe looking to do that in the near future, but I imagine we will see a token in Cleveland if he can get it. The problem is that if he tokens in Cleveland, he leaves himself open to being tokened out of Chicago by one of these other players. The Grand Trunk could potentially upgrade here and then lay a sharp curve, or the Erie could upgrade Indianapolis if he lays these tracks. And by he, I mean the B&O. So needs to be a little bit careful, not in real danger, but if he plays sloppily, could regret it. So he will just token in Cleveland, and he does not lay any track. Running his 4 trains, is going to be running quite well, and hits 460. Could half pay and still double jump. 230 will be enough, so may see him do that. Just full pays. GT running 4 trains. Not sure where he's hoping to get with this. He's not going to be tokened out anywhere. Maybe just hoping to prevent other people from looping around and bypassing Toledo very easily. He also doesn't token anywhere. Not in imminent danger of losing the token in Chicago as a result of the New York blocking Toledo. So just reserving the token for now. And he's running for 400, so also running quite well. And he also full pays. New York just running 1 train, and looks like he is going to take a share back and not lay any track, so just hoping to get more paying shares into his treasury. And he runs for 210, which will be enough for a double jump if he full pays, which he does. Erie still running the 4 trains, and Erie not going to be able to make it into Chicago this turn, but if he upgrades Indianapolis, will be threatening it in the next one. The B&O should be able to prevent this, and does have cash for a token, so maybe a little bit of a low yield play, but I don't know where he's heading otherwise. So he'll upgrade Dayton and get a link into the New York home tile, probably just looking to optimize his runs. Still doesn't have an east-west. I think the only person with an east-west right now is the Grand Trunk. And he runs for 400, so pretty close to what the other company's revenues were. Right now, it looks like the most cash is with Cute Beast, closely followed by Batsman, and the net worth is quite close as well. In terms of shares, Batsman and Cute Beast trail by 1 share, and they will probably just be buying shares of other people's companies. I don't know that anybody is super motivated to float the C&O here. In theory, the track is still open for it. So if he has a president that cooperates, could get into Cincinnati or Dayton on its first operating round. The question is, are those presidencies going to cooperate? So Cube East and Batsman are the first to have priority. So they may be looking at the C&O as a viable second company. This would be pretty easy to push into the first rank of permanent trains and rust the other players' twos. They would have to part pretty high in order to operate before the other players' twos run, which would be aggressive, but they have the cash to do it. And especially if they sell shares and put them on the market, those companies will be falling back as well. So not the worst idea, I don't think. He is going to buy his own Erie share, and Batsman is buying a GT. So it looks like neither one of those players is eager to start the C&O. Not necessary to start a second company in 1846 and still be able to win, but they are the two players probably with the best opportunity to do it. I don't imagine that Irwin or Matt Fedor are going to be trusting the B&O and Erie to be cooperative with the C&O. Irwin buying his own share, buying it from the market. Matt Fedor also buying his own share from the market. Cute Beast buying treasury shares in the B&O. B&O is train locked, so giving it the cash is not going to allow it to push into the permanent trains. And do we see the B&O sell out here? Not quite yet, but the NYC now has no more market shares, which is good for it. B&O has now sold out. One of these players might be selling 1 or 2 shares to try and take the treasury, take the money out of the or put the money into the treasury before it gets too expensive, and then also allow it to fall back. Instead, Cute Beast will be buying his Erie again. The B&O and the Erie are, well, this GT is also running for a lot, so kind of a lot of incentive for the players to be buying these shares. Is the Erie sellout as well here? Instead, Irwin is going to put a market share in, and he buys a NYC. I think that, so if the Erie falls back, it will still be operating last, so it's not going to change turn order or operating order, but he may just be worried that these 2 trains are not going to run more than once because the Erie is operating last, so probably feeling more secure in the NYC. In fact, he may be signaling that he's guaranteeing that they will not run more than once because he may be buying the 5 or the 4-6 in the NYC. GT, Matt Fedor is now maxed out in that company. And QPeace is selling it so it falls back. As a result, it will be operating after New York. So QPeace may be kind of cozying on to what's going on here and hoping that if his 2 trains rust, the other players will as well. Alternatively, he may just be looking to buy his own market share to prevent him falling back. It looks like that's what he's doing. So that's kind of what I was talking about, where by putting another player's share in the market, you can sometimes incentivize them to give you back priority. Irwin, unfortunately, still has enough cash. Actually, he does not have enough cash, so that may be what he was hoping to do. He's probably hoping to accomplish multiple things with one move. One, put the Erie in a more dangerous situation in terms of its choose rusting, and also reclaiming priority from Cube Beast. Well, not unfortunately, but he is actually not going to be doing that because he sells a B&O. What is he looking to buy here? Well, so he may actually be doing exactly what we just said. If Batsman, moves to defend the B&O from falling back, it will give Irwin priority into the next stock round. So maybe that's his motivation there. He does have to be a little bit careful. He's running out of things to invest in. Has sold out of the Erie and the B&O. Is maxed in the NYC, so will be forced to basically buy a GT here if he wants to invest his cash, which he may very well do, and then just let the other players figure out how to prevent their companies from falling back. Mad Fedor responding to Irwin, and does he look to buy a third B&O here? Looks like it. So Irwin is a little bit angry about that probably because it means the other players don't have to do anything, and he will be still operating pretty late in priority in the next stock round. And it looks like Irwin is not content to just pass into the next operating round. And does he look to float the C&O here? He does. So he pars it at 60, which is a very low par. Maybe just looking to loot this company's treasury and then have it close, much the same as we saw with the IC. I don't imagine a real reason to par it so low otherwise. And he doesn't control the Erie or the B&O, which are the players that are going to be, dictating the fate of these tiles here. So maybe just looking at two companies closing in this game. And is he going to continue to buy shares? Yeah, so he may be doing the exact same thing where he sells all these shares, get it close to the closure, and then just shuffles his money around. He actually didn't sell it down. So we will see if he's actually genuine in wanting to run this company. If I'm the B&O player, I probably am laying towards Chicago and dropping a token there. I'm now a little bit worried about one of these other players competing with me for that. And it seems he shares that fear. So we'll be running even better in this operating round than last, but I think this will probably be the last time we see these twos run. So we'll have one more operation of them, but I think we'll see the NYC or one of these other players buy into the permanent trains. Running for 510, which is great. He was unfortunately in the red zone of the market, so wasn't able to triple jump. New York is issuing a ton of shares and is going to be rusting the other players' twos. So this really helps Batsman because he gets one extra run compared to the other players with his two trains. Irwin did his best to prevent this, but the other players were having none of it. He is not passing. He's not laying any track, and will run his single train. He withholds it, so that gives him enough money for two of the 4 6s, two of the cheap permanents, and he does buy both of them. Irwin, I think that unfortunately he may be putting himself in a rough position here. He has more shares than everybody else, and he has 2 permanent trains, so he's not going to be, in any risk of bankruptcy. He has, a train for the C&O, but he's not going to be running. He's not going to be getting revenue from 6 of his shares in this operating round, and he also just withheld on the other 6. So he's going to be falling quite behind the other players in terms of revenue in this operating round. And the C&O's run is probably not going to be great the first time it operates. So I think that he may be in a rough spot here. The other players have plenty of cash for permanent trains. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. B&O is going to have to do probably one withhold because he has no treasury shares paying. But he's also not really in danger of these trains rusting because he's going to operate before the other players again. So he has some time to figure it out. And the B&O has pretty good track. Has basically guaranteed himself an east-west run at least once, potentially even twice, since he has access to the Northeast and then also through Wheeling, and will have the potential to run into St. Louis and Chicago. So good late game potential for the B&O, and he owns 50 of it. Irwin notably owns 0 of it, so that just goes to show what I was talking about with his kind of precarious position here. GT, he is upgrading that same track that he laid last time. Still a little bit confused what he's hoping to accomplish there. Maybe just looking to bypass Detroit in the late game and get a run into Chicago through Port Huron and Sarnia. But I don't know why he would be that motivated to do that, because Detroit upgrades and can hit Windsor and it's just a better run. So not entirely comprehending what he's doing here, but as a newer player I may just be missing it. And he runs pretty well with his 4 trains. It's the last run of the 2s. And he is issuing a share, and then half pays, and we'll be picking up the second to last cheap permanent here. He picks up a 5. So if he runs 5 stops, he will be able to hit his east-west, which is oftentimes kind of the best that GT can do, because it floats early and has the tendency to get tokened out of these longer east-west runs. Erie, last operation of its 2 trains, and where is he looking to head? Looks like he may be heading towards St. Louis, realizing that his potential of getting into Chicago has evaporated, and just looking to secure a late game run for itself. Does he drop a token anywhere? Maybe wanting to look towards Cincinnati. Neither of these players, the Erie or the B&O, have done anything to hurt the C&O just yet. But the C&O is going to need at least 2 operating rounds to link up with Dayton anyway. Actually, I don't think that's true. He could upgrade into Brown, as we're now in the Brown phase. So we'll be able to get there this operating round if he's motivated to do so. And running for 420, does he half pay here to, again, get a permanent train? He does. So this is kind of rough for the C&O, right? Because the cheap permanent trains have gone away, so he's going to be stuck with no ability really to buy a more expensive permanent train. He's going to be splitting the cheap trains from his other company in the NYC, which is not great for him. He will, looks like, get immediately into Cincinnati, and not the biggest rush to leave a token in Cincinnati, is the only other person that's going to be tokening there right away is the Erie. I suppose we could see the Cleveland tile upgraded and get the other players in that way. There is another Z Brown, so that is possible. So probably better safe than sorry and just drop a token there, unless he's hoping to close the company. He does token, and he shuffles trains. So may see the New York try and rush down to Cincinnati and leave a token there. But on the other hand, that's not really that high yield, because the Cincinnati tile has already been bypassed, something I missed at G11, and Cleveland is probably the real choke point that he needs to watch out for. So may see New York just token in Cleveland instead, actually. B&O last run of its 2s, but it, as we mentioned, does get 1 more run than the rest of the players. Does he upgrade Chicago here? Instead, upgrading Indianapolis, maybe just getting an extra few bucks from the last run of these 2s. Running for pretty monstrous 580 and 610, sorry, and probably half pays for a good permanent train here. He withholds the whole thing, and we'll be buying the expensive 7-8. So once again, the B&O has managed to run its trains 1 more time than the rest of the players. I think this kind of thing is what leads to players winning the game. Just that added efficiency, and just the small incremental increase in your net worth by having the trains run one more time. Batsman, it's unfair comparison because he has had 1 more run than the other players. He is tied for net worth, or functionally tied with Matt Fedor, in 1 share behind, but I think that Batsman is in a much stronger position. He's much more invested in the B&O and has better trains. Matt Fedor is the second most invested player in the B&O, so really not locked out of this game, I wouldn't say, but with some just slow play and good runs, the B&O will kind of put Batsman ahead, I think. GT, last run of the 3-5. and he will be upgrading Chicago instead of the B&O. And he has a single east-west run, but is running for 440 with his second train, and he also half pays. So that kind of thing is going to allow him to redeem a share potentially, but it does hurt him in the sense that Batsman had to full withhold. So if he had paid out there, he would be really increasing his lead, which I think we may see evaporating in the next couple of operating rounds. So I would have liked to see him rush towards a higher net worth. Maybe he needed token money there. Maybe that's what he's worried about. Erie, he's going to be looking towards bypassing Toledo, it looks like. Probably not going to be able to get into Chicago before the Grand Trunk, but maybe that's why the Grand Trunk withheld. In terms of operating order, Grand Trunk should be operating before Erie, but again, if the Grand Trunk were to fall back in the stock round and Erie was not, we could see that change. He's running his 2 trains and maybe have to full withhold here in an effort to get a more expensive permanent train. He does have a cheap one, but I think he loses the game if he's stuck with just one of those cheap permanent trains. So he full pays, will be just resigning himself to the single train, it looks like. This is the player that pulled that shenanigans with the ick, so although he had an interesting start, may not be able to capitalize on it. He's technically leading in net worth, but this is the middle of an operating round, so unfair comparison. Irwin has 2 of the cheap trains, and upgrading Detroit. Not tokening just yet, and running for 550. He also pays out and has no shares in the treasury, so unfortunately not going to be reaping the reward of those. Has basically just token money left. Can't even lay any more track without losing the ability to drop a token. Sino's second operation, and has been tokened out of Chicago, what was kind of always a long shot of him getting in there. I'm a little bit confused if he's looking to just close this company or not. The fact that he's left the permanent train in there makes me think that he is not going to be able to close it. He is upgrading Cincinnati, and he does run it. Does he pay it out? He full pays, and we are into the next stock round. So at the end of that operating round, we have Cute Beast technically leading in net worth, but very narrowly compared to Batsman and Matt Fedor, and I think they're in better positions in the game. I do favor Batsman over the other players in general. I think that Irwin has a pretty substantial share lead, but unfortunately his shares are just not very good. So I think that Batsman is in the strongest position here, but Matt Fedor is not in a terrible position either. If he could somehow find his way a second train or just make good investments, maybe seeing him eke out a victory. I think Cute Beast is probably going to lose, and I'm worried that Irwin will as well. Matt Fedor buying the New York. Cute Beast also buying the New York. And Batsman is changing it up a little bit, buying an Erie. So I guess that the good companies, so to speak, mostly meaning the B&O, are sold out. So they're kind of left picking up the rest of the leftovers. Irwin cert locked. Does he sell out some of the C&O shares here? Just passing. So the other players are going to catch him and reach the cert limit. He, as a result of having a second presidency, will exceed them with 1 share, but that's not going to be enough, I don't think, to give him the game. Matt Fedor buying out the last Erie. Cute Beast has 2 shares to buy and will buy a New York. Batsman, what does he look to buy here? Probably another GT. I think that's probably the company that will have the best return on his investment, and it looks like he agrees. Irwin's still cert locked, and Matt Fedor is as well. He sells an Erie, and will probably be buying the last NYC. You can't buy any more of the GT. Looks like that's the case. Cute Beast can only buy GT here, which probably is the best investment, so not too upset about that. And Batsman will be buying his last share and the last share in the GT, I imagine, and does. So everybody's at their cert limit, and the GT will be falling back, actually. I don't imagine that that is left to stand. I think that someone will sell a share in another company and pick that up. But let's see. Actually, they allow it to happen. It caught me by surprise. B&O operating 3 trains is going to have a monster run, but this is the last time it will be able to operate all 3. He is going to look to bypass Terre Haute and just improve his 7-8 run down the road, and is going to be running for 680, a little bit less than I expected actually, and he full pays. So just going to have the 1 train from now, but is running the best route in the game, or at least in this current game, and is the only player with a 7-8, surprisingly. Most of these players were content with the cheap permanent trains, and because the IC closed, there are 1 fewer company to buy trains. So may see the Erie pick up a 2nd train. He's pretty close, but I think the other companies are unfortunately going to be stuck with just the trains that they currently have. Cute Beast. He is operating the Erie. Does he look to contend for that token in Chicago? He did end up operating before the GT. GT fell back because of the market share, and the Erie floated up. So that's what we were worried about happening when we saw him rushing to Chicago, and it ended up coming to fruition. So good news for Erie. And he gets in there and does token. So the GT's east-west run has been killed, which is bad news for Mad Fedor, who was Batsman probably closest competitor. So Batsman is looking like he'll probably take this. Erie, does he withhold here for a 2nd train? He does. So he'll be running 2 trains. That makes the Erie kind of a monster in the late game, and Batsman is only 20% behind Cute Beast, so I think that he will be in a great position. Cute Beast is $300 behind as a result of the withhold. Tied in terms of shares, so with running 2 companies, or 2 trains, may be able to sneak past Batsman. I haven't done the math. Irwin running a single train, probably only going to be running a single train. Does have an east-west run, it looks like. Well, it definitely has an east-west run, but it's just not very exciting. So he's looking to improve it a little bit. And actually, yes, he does do the east-west. And he pays out. GT, similar run, but unfortunately has been tokened out of Chicago, just missed his opportunity there. He was locked on terms of shares, so really was at the mercy of the other players, and they colluded to give that token to Erie. He will be upgrading Cleveland. Does have 1 token left, so I mean, this doesn't really hurt the B&O or the Erie. I don't imagine he wants to leave that in Cincinnati. He probably would token Cleveland. I guess he could also token in Erie, just to cut that east-west run. So some good options for a token here. We'll see where he decides. He does just token in Cleveland. Doesn't really hurt the NYC. I don't think he was running that track anyways. And the B&O and Erie, of course, are unaffected. He is redeeming a share. That does give him a little more cash down the road, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough for a permanent train before the bank breaks. C&O, this company floated late, as we know, so could drop a token in. Well, I don't know that his tokens matter that much. The other companies seem pretty secure. They've already bypassed Indianapolis and that sort of thing, so tokens don't seem super important. He's going to be upgrading Dayton just to improve his run, and does not leave a token. Does have an east-west run for itself, and is running for 270. Again, compared to the other companies, not going to be enough to really make that company worthwhile. B&O second operation, unfortunately now just running the 1 train. Let's just take a quick look at the game state, and Batsman and Irwin are tied for second, and Mad Fedor has a very narrow lead. Cute Beast brings up the rear. He does have the company with 2 trains, though. Um, the revenue in this operating round are not entirely representative of what's going to be the case moving forward because Cute Beast had to withhold. But actually, it looks like maybe Mad Fedor is running for the most, and he currently leads in net worth, so it's going to be very close. Hard to predict. The Erie is going to be the big X factor here, and it looks like only Cute Beast and Batsman are invested in it, so maybe able to see Batsman walk away with a win here. B&O, he is going to upgrade Indianapolis, again just increasing his run, and he is going to be running for 460, probably just continuing to pay out. I imagine all these companies are just going to be pure paying out now. NYC, not laying any track, pretty much has the run it's looking to end the game with, and running for 370. Erie now has 2 trains, so does have some interesting decisions and route making and potentially some optimization of its run. He's not going to need to pass or lay any track, and I imagine he's doing 2 east-west runs, which he does. Actually, he does not. He goes to Louisville. Could he not reach St. Louis? I guess he only has 6 stops max, and well, he would be able to get into St. Louis, but didn't want to bypass Cincinnati, I guess. Because he could run from the off-board into Erie to Cleveland, Dayton, that's 4 stops, and then Centralia and St. Louis. So I assume he did the math and figured out that that was the best run, but a little bit surprised to see him not actually able to capitalize on the 2 east-wests. He half pays, which is surprising. That's going to hurt his chances of winning, and also Batsman is probably upset by that. What is he looking for the cash for? He had cash for the token already, and he did not have cash for a token. So is he looking to token somewhere? I can't imagine where. I suppose a token in Erie would potentially hurt the B&O. B&O could look to get an east-west run through Wheeling, though. So maybe that's what he's hoping to do. I think that this is just crabs in a bucket, though. If the B&O and Erie fight, then I think both of those players will lose. Mad Fedor, he is running the same route. Does get an upgrade for Chicago. And is unfortunately unable to get an east-west run, so is just hitting all the highest value revenue centers. Does have a run for 300, could be worse, but could be a lot better. CNO, again, this company's run is going to be pretty limited. He issues a ton of shares. If he full withholds here, he will be within range of a second train, which may lead to a shakeup in terms of the portfolios in the next stock round. But I think that Irwin, with all these withholds and low revenues, is probably eliminated from the game. So he will pick up a permanent train here. So I imagine we'll see some redistribution of investment here, just because the CNO is going to be running a little bit better with these 2 trains now. Irwin does have priority. He is unfortunately maxed out on the CNO, so he's not going to be able to pick up any of those shares, and basically has just hurt himself to give other players better shares. Probably see some people selling out of the GT. Mad Fedor. Oh, wrong direction. Irwin passing, Mad Fedor passing as well, Cute Beast, and everyone actually just passes. So I guess they don't believe that the runs of the CNO is going to be high enough to justify investing. I am a little bit suspicious that the CNO is going to be running high enough that it's a worthwhile investment over the GT. The appreciation is only $5 different between the 2 companies. If the GT is able to double jump, of course, then that changes things, but it is not going to be double jumping anymore in this game, and the CNO will be. So I think that that's a little bit of a missed opportunity. I'm surprised we didn't see anybody buy any of those CNO shares. B&O, he is upgrading Indianapolis and is going to be probably full paying 490. NYC. He is actually opening up the second or the fourth token in Chicago for someone that can upgrade E7. Um, Almost all the companies are able to get there. It's just going to come down to turn order and who has money for tokens. So the Erie may be able to take advantage of that. He's operating next and does have that run or access to it. Does that track still exist? It's not on the board, so it should be possible to upgrade to it. QPiece, does he see this opportunity? Instead, going to upgrade Erie and I guess token there. He tokens on Indianapolis. It doesn't hurt the B&O. Doesn't really hurt. It doesn't really help the Erie either. Sorry, I missed that the Erie already had a token in Chicago, so we wouldn't have seen the Erie drop a token there. So maybe just preventing the C&O from running in there. Erie running for 680 and pays out. This should be the last set of operating rounds, so I don't imagine we're going to see anybody withholding anymore. GT, kind of the sick man in the game in terms of revenue at this point. Still upgrading, seeing some gray tiles to come out, and runs for 290, pays out. C&O has 2 trains and has been tokened out of access to Chicago, so the runs there are not going to be too great. Can get in through Fort Wayne potentially to at least hit Chicago. Not going to be able to run through Chicago as a result of the way the brown track has come out, but maybe looking to get in there next operating round. It is running for 500, so a bunch better than it was last operating round. And let's just look at the current game state. I think this is the last set of operating rounds. QPiece running for the most by about $100, and he is second place. So if everything stays the same, we will see Batsman take this game because a $100 difference is not going to be enough to secure the game for QPiece. So we've been favoring Batsman for a while in this game, but it has been pretty close, closer than I expected, and we'll see if there's anything that shakes things up. He is running for $510 more than his last run, and the New York is going to be upgrading Fort Wayne, so potentially helping the C&O by giving it access again to Chicago. And he's running for 390, pays it out. The Erie running 2 trains does probably have the highest revenue in the game. It does by a fair margin. And he is looking to, I guess, bypass Centralia and get into St. Louis, but with only 1 operation left, not going to be possible. And he has now 2 east-west. No, he just has a single east-west run still. So bank is broken. This will be the last operating round. GT's last operation. Upgrading Fort Wayne, just getting a few more dollars for its last run. And C&O going to be running pretty well, but too little too late for Irwin. And we do see Batman take it. He wins by just over $100, and I think that if the game had lasted just one more set, QPiece looks like he would have been in a position to win, but that's not the case. So well played, Batsman, and the other players. Some interesting shenanigans at the start of the game with the Ick. Cool to see that strategy. Unfortunately, just barely not enough for QPiece to take the game, and we will be back in the future with more games and more 1846 as I gain familiarity with the title. Thank you for listening.